any type of way. They might just make their way over certified. So this driver of that describe as cat and mouse. The vehicle was, they were chasing it, they were behind it, lights and sirens, it would pull over, and then the officers would get out of the vehicle, and then the driver, the suspect, would start driving again. This was an on-again, off-again type of situation, much like most of my relationships, but this vehicle right there, the officers, eventually they just said, you know what, enough. We're just going to back off, we're just going to stay away from this car, and then but the helicopter was above, they were surveilling it, but then the watch commander did something a little unusual for the sheriff's department and basically said, we're going to re-engage this pursuit. And that's when they got that vehicle, the one that you see right there, that one black and white, that's the one that is actually PIT certified. Now, not all the deputies in those vehicles are PIT certified, so this driver of that sheriff's unit is PIT certified and apparently has done at least one PIT maneuver before we arrived here that was unsuccessful, as in it did spin the car around, but the truck just kept on going. Right now, though, you can see what we've been talking about. That vehicle stopped at this moment, and you can see that door open right there. One of the deputies' doors is open. You got another officer basically going to stop traffic, keep the public safe, and that's one of the biggest concerns for all these pursuits. We've been talking about this recently. We've seen a lot of civilians being injured. Now, the law enforcement, they're out here in force, and they're working to keep the public safe. Right now, waiting for that light to turn green. I can just imagine what those deputies are feeling right now. They probably just want to get out and get that suspect into custody, but now they have to wait right now till they can either this vehicle goes and they might be able to do a PIT, or they might be able to block him in.
That is an interesting point you make. I think many people may not know that not all police vehicles are PIT certified. So if you could explain that, meaning that not every officer or deputy can stop some of these pursuit suspects.
It is a complicated maneuver, Roxy. It isn't what, you know, we see it happen so often that we'd probably just kind of just glaze over the fact that those drivers are actually PIT certified, meaning they go take specialized classes in whatever department they're in, and they actually learn to do that properly. There's a lot of parameters there. We always talk about speed, but it's also where you hit the vehicle, how you react in your vehicle after doing that PIT maneuver. There you go. And basically just spinning that thing around right there. Look at that. But this is what we've been talking about. It's a pit. Oh, that is not good. Whenever you drive, and again, going against traffic, so, and hitting a deputy's vehicle. This is going to get a little bit more rough, as you just saw right there. And then you got folks down there with their cell phones out. That's another thing, all the law enforcement, they do not want to see that. Of course, you don't want to see anything like that. There's a spike strip right there. Now, did he hit it? That's a tough one. I was actually looking at something else, but maybe some of our viewers will bet a better view, or maybe you even, Roxia, saw if he hit it. But of course, law enforcement, they want to keep the public safe, and when these folks are running around with their cell phones out, that's always dangerous, especially towards a suspect that is fleeing officers. That driver may not see those people. Right now, though, you can see we're making our way back on Rosecrans. Looks like we're heading, if I'm just looking out the window, I believe we're going eastbound right now on Rosecrans. I'm kind of curious to see if that spike, if that front tire or that rear tire on the driver's side caught that spike strip.
Are we at a signal light right now because the vehicle stopped again? Yes. Okay, it's very interesting to me to see this because for moments it seems like it's calm, he's obeying all of the signals, and then we just saw something like this where he completely did the opposite of what we were expecting. What is in the back of that truck? I can't tell. What's in the back of that pickup?
I would venture to say, yeah, it looks like logs or stumps. Okay. There you go, using some of the power of Skyfox right there. Yeah, it looks like just some wood, some stumps, adds a little weight to it. But you know what? That's also some great catch there, Roxia. If that tailgate pops open and those start falling out, that could create a lot of damage for anybody that's right behind that vehicle, law enforcement and or any of those civilians. Those things weigh a good amount of weight, and then of course rolling around on the road, if somebody doesn't see it, that could create some problems. Right now, though, you can see that driver. It looks like I'm not going to get too into what the kids do, but it almost looks like he's inhaling nitrous.
Yes.
Whoa, what was, there we go. That caught me off guard, that's for sure. And this guy is inhaling nitrous and driving around down there. This is just insanity. And of course, this is probably one of, this might be it.
Look at all of the officers.
Yeah, I thought he was going to get stuck there on that center divider. Yeah, all those deputies out there, and that's probably one of the reasons why they re-engaged that pursuit. You know, this driver, we just clearly saw, we believe what he's doing in there could have been helium for all we know, but chances are that was some nitrous. So this driver, very impaired while driving out here. The deputies from the Compton area chasing him, and again, right now in a very I'm just looking at the streets. I was just wondering if this was a neighborhood that I knew. We're in the Compton neighborhoods out here, but you can see that vehicle making his way a little slower now. But definitely, this is something that's so dangerous. That driver, yes, he is stopping for those lights, but you can clearly impaired this afternoon, and these deputies working just to bring this to an end safely.
Yeah, it is quite deceiving because, as you point out, you see him complying in certain traffic situations, and you think, okay, he is using good judgment, if you can call it that. But then obviously you see moments like this where, first of all, he's a DUI driver. That's why police are after him. And if he is indeed inhaling nitrous, whatever he's doing with that balloon in the front seat of his vehicle, obviously his judgment and his actions are going to be compromised. And this is very worrisome because now we're talking about him being in what looks like a neighborhood, and you just don't know who could be out there walking their dog. Maybe some kids could even be out there playing. This is very concerning.
Very concerning indeed, but at least he's driving a little bit slower. That's if there is a positive, but still, even if you're driving slower and you're that type of impaired, you just don't know what's going to happen. And you can clearly see that driver with that balloon right there. For all we know, he's not, but it definitely looks like, that's the only thing we can say right now, it looks like he's inhaling nitrous as he's driving through this Compton neighborhood. You can see the streets right there, Poplar, Oleander, and moving a little bit slower. Maybe I'll bring up the speedometer for folks if they okay that. I'm just going to bring it up so get an idea. But you know what? Even at 20 miles an hour, even at 10 miles an hour, if he strikes a child or a person that might just, like you said, just out for a walk or walk crossing the street, it still could be lethal. So even though he's driving a little bit slower, following some of these street, some of the law enforcement, street and traffic enforcement, excuse me, I can't get my words out, but you can see it right there. They basically have backed off, or they have not backed off, because my scanner kind of got quiet there for a moment. But this pursuit definitely continuing. We got some pedestrians just crossing the street right there. Thank goodness he didn't make that turn.
So, Stu, this, you said, began in the Carson, Compton area. It looks like we're still in that vicinity, that area still. Call has come in as far as you know, a reckless DUI driver, and this is where we are right now. He hasn't really left the neighborhood of where this began, and it does appear that he is alone in that vehicle.
Definitely seems to be alone inside that vehicle. Definitely hasn't really left the neighborhood. And also, the speeds really haven't gotten up to anything, you know, anything really that we would call dangerous. He's actually been staying pretty much within the speed limit, unless, you know, they spin him around and he tears out of there. But he did strike a deputy's vehicle. That is going to be a huge issue for that driver. And then, of course, all this felony fleeing, that is also going to be a problem. Right now, though, that deputy, I'm trying to see if that's the same number. I believe that is the same vehicle that has been doing the pit maneuver. So perhaps they'll try it again, but it seems like it's pretty unsuccessful with that pickup truck. He's been very successful in doing the maneuver, but that vehicle just continues to drive, even though he spins it around. They tried to block it in a moment or two ago, and this is probably where it's going to come to an end because it's behind a tree. Olivier, again, he's going to try to move Skyfox around right now, but it does seem like for some reason he did come to a stop right there. But he has played cat and mouse. There he goes. Many times in the past. I was wondering if that was what was going to happen, because that is really what got our attention. We were listening to it at Van Nuys. He stopped, and then he would go, and then he would stop, and then he would go. So he's been doing that pretty much the entire time that deputies have been behind that vehicle, playing that same game again right now. So, you know, how are they going to bring this to an end? This would be a good opportunity to try to bring those spikes. Oh! It's a dead-end street. I didn't even hear that, but it does seem like some of those pylons are missing So, and it might be a little deceiving right there where if that's a wall or a fence. Oh, that's the wash. So he is kind of stuck right there. He might be able to make his way along that bike path. Hopefully he doesn't. But this is an interesting situation for sure. And again, you know, deputies have their weapons out. They are not here. They're not goofing around. And that driver clearly impaired this afternoon, but right now really doesn't have much of a choice of where he can go. So we're going to keep an eye on this for sure.
Well, you know, and also something to take into consideration is we don't know if this individual is armed. We have absolutely no idea, and neither does law enforcement. This is why they're keeping their distance. This is why they're now also approaching with their guns drawn. So we have to just wait and see what the next move is, if he will indeed open that door and follow the instructions and come out with his arms raised, or what he decides to do. It's quite problematic, of course, when you have someone who isn't making the best decisions under the circumstances of being driving under the influence, as police believe he is, and as we've witnessed him with that balloon and what we assume perhaps is nitrous.
That's right. Very defiant indeed. And now you have a dog just on the loose out there walking along. Compton, very much a neighborhood. And right there you can see there is a, I don't know. I don't think he's got really any place to go. This right now is a little bit of a standoff. Maybe that driver's just trying to use up the last of whatever he has to get intoxicated with. The window is definitely coming down. Let's take a peek and see what he's doing. Hopefully, there you go. That is clearly the actions of a very intoxicated person in that driver's seat, looking up at us right there. The deputies, though, they are not goofing around. They are definitely not playing. You have deputies over here, their weapons out. All the deputies that were behind him right now, you can see they're kind of they are all amassing. And another spike, though. Okay, so they're going to bring the spike strip out just in case this driver tries to wiggle his way out of here, but there really isn't any place for him to go. That fall off of there, that could be lethal. And we don't want to see that. We don't want to see that suspect injured. But right now, these deputies, they've got this car wedged in. That pursuit suspect not getting out of that vehicle, and my guess, that's California Highway Patrol airship overhead, my guess is that he might just want to wait. He's probably just going to sit in there, wait this out, use up whatever he has to get intoxicated, and then make a decision about coming out of that vehicle.
We also don't know if they're in touch with this individual as far as maybe negotiating with him, maybe have his phone number, they're talking to him. We have no idea.
No, we don't at all, Araxia, though the law enforcement, they have so many tricks up their sleeves. Their bag of tricks seems to be endless. They're moving that vehicle. Now, they're not going to push him off that edge. They're just going to kind of wedge him in there so he can't back out or possibly get some speed and injure a deputy. So that's one of the reasons why they're just putting that vehicle right up against that bumper, and just to keep that vehicle from moving in any type of way. They might just make their way over there, open up that door, and try to take that suspect into custody. We saw that early. We saw that about a week ago. I was actually shocked at how quickly those deputies just kind of made a plan and then just put it into action. Right now, though, you can see that window down again. Definite movement inside that car. He's expressing his, he's talking to the officers right now. You can see he's a little upset. They're already shooting the pepper balls at him. You know, as far as law enforcement goes, the deputies, those are all, that's all pepper balls. That's all pepper balls. But they have to break that rear window to get that actually, to actually get that guy and be effective. Sometimes they'll shoot what they call the 40 millimeter, which is basically a big slug or a big sandbag, just to break that window. That tint right there is not allowing those pepper balls to make their way into that car. But you can see that window's open. These deputies very aggressive. They want to get this guy into custody. And it really, truly, one of the reasons might be they don't want to see him do something dumb like try to drive away and fall into that wash. That's probably a good 15, 20 feet. That could be lethal. So right now, they're just they're starting their negotiations, but we already saw them shoot some pepper balls at him. So hopefully that's going to be enough to get that guy out of the car and they can take him into custody.
Right, we do see him putting his hands out off and on, but we don't know if he's just trying to communicate see, like right now, what is he doing right now?
That's a good question, Roxy. I was wondering what he was doing like 5-10 minutes ago when he was driving around and hitting deputies' vehicles. It does seem like a portion of that rear window broken. I don't know what he just tossed out there. Oh, he tossed out a piece of glass. There is a center window right there. I don't know if you can really make that out. That was the tint held the glass together, and he just tossed it out of the car. But this is an opportunity for them to shoot those pepper balls into that vehicle, into the cab. I believe they're doing it right now, and that may be enough of an irritant to get that guy out of that car, and once he's out, then they can take him into custody.
And just to be clear, Stu, this is not a stolen vehicle. This may be very well his own vehicle. All we know is this was a pursuit that began because of a reckless DUI driver.
That's the same information we're getting up here, Roxy, 100%. And that driver, you know, they did do a couple of pit maneuvers. That pickup truck spun around. I thought for sure it was going to get stuck on that center divider. But I have to really hand it to these deputies out here. You know, they're not, and I think one of the reasons why they're not basically playing that waiting game with that suspect is because they are afraid that he is going to injure himself by trying to move forward at some point. We don't know how intoxicated that driver is. It does look like he put up that side window, which may be a big plus for the deputies, because if they start shooting some more of those pepper balls, now that gas is going to stay inside that vehicle. Now clearly smoking something in there. So this driver trying to use up whatever he has inside that vehicle to get intoxicated, probably before he goes into custody, because he's probably going to be in custody for some time.
And it looks like, Stu, we are at in a neighborhood, right? These are homes surrounding this vehicle.
Definitely.
Yes.
This is going to be in the Compton neighborhood. Poplar and Wilmington is the major. The Wilmington is probably going to be on the right side of the screen right there. And you can see the number of deputies that made their way behind that vehicle. And it is. He ran out of roadway right there. And there's no place for that car to go. And I have a feeling that that suspect is just going to be in that vehicle for the next couple of minutes, getting intoxicated, and then hopefully just going to be letting himself out of that truck and then going into custody. But I have to wonder if they are just waiting to get some more of those pepper balls, as it would be, to shoot through that hole they have now in the window, and that might be effective now because he has the side windows up, so that gas will stay in, that powder will stay inside that cab.
So you've covered so many of these, but just for people watching this and wondering, well, why don't they just approach the vehicle and end this? Why just stand around and wait for what happens next? Why give him the option of when he decides he feels like coming out of the vehicle? What's your explanation for that?
Well, the explanation for that is always the same. It's safety. It is all about safety. Like you said, we don't know if that suspect is armed. He still is in control of that vehicle, which could be a deadly weapon. In this case, he's actually right at the edge of a wash with about a 20-foot drop. And the suspect's safety is also a concern for all law enforcement. So right now, if they would approach that vehicle, let's say they would just kind of run up, open up that door, one of the scenarios could easily be him panicking, hitting the gas and going over the side, maybe even injuring a deputy in the process, but definitely injuring himself. So that's the reason. It's all about safety. It's all about being safe. And law enforcement, they have those rules. They have those parameters that they have to abide by. And right now, that suspect, he's sitting there, and he's just basically taking his time until he decides that he wants to go into custody. But of course, you know, the deputies down there, they're coming up with some other plans as well. We might see some other action here in just a few moments.
You know, speaking of action, we do have some of that video from earlier before things came to a standstill with that pit maneuver. We're going to show people right here. He was at a light. He started to move. The officer behind him, who is certified to do a pit maneuver, did so. He was able to turn around, weave his way through those police cruisers, cross over the barrier, go in the opposite direction. You will see in a moment as he is driving, it appeared, Stu, this is where we were thinking, oh, maybe he went over those spike strips which had been set up, but it looks like he was able to avoid that, and it looks like, judging by his vehicle, he did not hit any of that, and he kept going. That is when we also got a shot from the side mirror of him inhaling the nitrous. They attempted a second pit maneuver that we saw on camera. He turned around, again, weaved his way through. We thought for a moment he might get stuck on the center divider, but he did not. He was able to cross over, and then he went into this neighborhood, and shortly you will see him come to the point that he's at right now, where he was able to weave his way into a neighborhood and then came to a dead end, which is interesting because, Stu, sometimes when we talk about these pursuits, suspects often end up trying to go to areas where they are familiar with the surrounding neighborhood or the territory. It appears as though in this case, whether or not he had a choice, he ended up coming somewhere where he got stuck. Perhaps he didn't know where he was going.
You know, it definitely, this seems, you know, I was thinking the same thing, Araxia, that he's obviously from the Compton area. He stayed in the Compton area. I mean, we did kind of move over to Dominguez Hills. You know, it's very, very close by, but he was in Compton, made his way back to Compton. And you're right, this was one of those ones where, you know, he clearly got himself into a spot where he was not familiar what was going on, coming to an end right there, and those barriers missing right there at the end of the roadway. That's kind of interesting in itself. I wonder if they're going to get somebody out here from the city to replace those even afterwards. But that vehicle could have easily, if he wasn't paying attention, could have gone into the wash. Right now, though, you can see some of these deputies, they're putting on some gas masks. So that makes me kind of wonder if you can see them right there. I'm trying to hold that shot in the center. So that makes me wonder if those deputies are part of what they would call the arrest team. They might be making their way over to the vehicle. And the reason why they're wearing that, not so much for the nitrous or anything else, but more for that irritant in those balls that are filled with the pepper, that so that they're not affected when they get inside that pickup truck. Right now, though, you can see it's more of a waiting game. He was playing that cat and mouse. Well, this mouse is in a trap right now, and the cats are about ready to do something and take that guy into custody, I'm sure.
Those masks. Thank you for explaining why they're doing that, because people might not have a full understanding. They're moving ahead now with those shields up. You do see them with their guns drawn and the shield up.
You know, and this is something, too, that's just the discipline involved. Oh, that's what they're doing. The different type of CS gas, they just kind of threw a container in there. It's interesting that he can put up with that. Right. I thought for sure they were going to make their way in just to get that guy out, but clearly now being a little bit agitated, rolling down the window, and just kind of sticking his head out there. But, you know, I have never been sprayed by that stuff, never want to be sprayed by that stuff. Don't even want to know. I don't want to be in the same room. So, but you know that is very irritating. There you go. You can see him kind of rubbing his eyes, and that might actually be making it worse. We've heard that in the past, that you get that stuff on your hands and then you rub your eyes because your eyes are irritated and you're just making it worse. But I just wonder how long you can just put up with that in there. But you can clearly see something is starting to take effect, and that driver, that suspect,
he's still smoking. He's still smoking.
Yeah, he broke out some kind of vape device there, and it's just so bizarre to see that he can put up with that. But what's the alternative? Well, you're going to spend some time in cuffs and away from anything that's going to get you high. That's for sure.
Well, clearly he's not 100%. He's not using judgment at all. Most people who get caught up in a pursuit are not, but he has a lot of things going on, from the DUI, from the nitrous, which we assume is what he was sucking up from that balloon, from whatever it is that he's smoking. His judgment is not at 100% in any way.
Definitely not, and you know, it's just like you said it perfectly. They most of the time you kind of wonder, what are these guys thinking? What are you doing? In this case, we know that this person extremely intoxicated and continues to just kind of fight that gas. I just saw him just a moment ago rubbing his eyes with his shirt. I don't think that, I think anything like that is just going to make things worse. And again, just hitting up whatever he's hitting right there. You can see that the smoke coming out of his mouth. Don't know if it's a vape pen or what type of vape he's using. But clearly, whatever's in that vehicle, he's trying to use up before he goes into custody. And these deputies, well, you know what, time is on their side, but they definitely want to bring this guy into custody because they don't want to see anything strange happen, like that vehicle lunge off and fall into that wash.
We do have many, many police cruisers behind this vehicle. We have a long line of them, and they have a lot of support. So at this point, they're just waiting to see what the next move is. Again, we are in a neighborhood. You did explain really well that it's not just about keeping people safe. It's also about the safety of the suspect, believe it or not. Let's see what they'll do. Another one. There it goes.
Another one. Yep, another one, just tossing it in there. No, but he threw that one back out.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just tossed it out, and here comes some more pepper balls. He got some in his eyes. You saw that one right there. It bounced off the windshield. So it's just, how much longer can you put up with that?
How much
I mean,
can
like,
you
come
tolerate?
on.
Right.
Yeah, just give up. Just give up. Just now, you know, getting out. You know, maybe he's getting out. Let's see. Maybe he's just trying to get some fresh air. But let's see what happens here. Let's see what happens here. I don't want to get off the super double, but I want to get a cleaner shot. Doing what he's doing right there, I don't think is going to be helpful. I think that's just rubbing it more into his eyes, but that's what it's designed for. You can see some of those deputies, I guess they're talking about how they're going to get this guy into custody. He's still not out of the car. And even if they open up that door, what's going to happen then? So just keep an eye on this. But what a bizarre ending to a chase that could have gone so wrong. I'm just happy that it seems like so far it's coming to a textbook end almost. Up, he's rolling up the windows. Why? Just go into custody, dude. Come on.
Yeah, interesting. They approached him now from the other side of the car, right? The driver's side. They tried to speak with him, but it seems like he was not interested.
Yeah, clearly he's not interested. Now he's got his hands up again, so I just, but that was kind of his thing earlier on too. It was very cat and mouse. He stopped, he let the deputies get close, and then he drove off. He would stop, so maybe he's kind of playing that same game. You know, he's like, yeah, I give up, and then they come over there and he's like, nah, no, I don't.
Very bizarre, very bizarre. It doesn't seem like he's speaking, though. It seems like he's just getting fresh air. Or
yep, just getting some fresh air. Yeah, earlier on, he was definitely yelling at the deputies. I saw, well, here's some more pepper balls. You know, and also you got to see, they're not shooting them at him.
Right.
Per se. They're shooting it into the car. What we just saw right there was one of the helicopters, one of the, I don't know if it was California Highway Patrol or the Sheriff's Department, but that's what just zipped by the screen. But yeah, you can see him. He's just trying to get that, get some air right there. I don't know if this would be a good time maybe to use like a taser, which I think that the Sheriff's Department are using less of, or possibly even like what they would call the sandbag or rubber bullets. But as long as he can retreat inside that vehicle, I think they're going to stay away from all of that. They want him out of that vehicle and in a place where they can take him into custody.
It's just this waiting game, the waiting game to see if he's going to make the right decision, come out of here, come out of that vehicle and end this once and for all. We all know how this is going to end. He's not getting away. That much is clear. We've definitely covered pursuits where the suspect has gotten away, but in this case, it looks like he will be taken into custody one way or another.
That's right, Roxy, and you have a number of deputies out there. You can see a number of those deputies, and they're all down there to help him make that right decision, and sooner than later. I'm just kind of wondering if what they're thinking about right now. This guy right here, I'm wondering what that's all about. That's some heavy artillery. But you know what? That also might be a BB gun. Yes, you can see the yellow stock. So that weapon is basically, they're using that to break some more windows so that they can get some more gas in there. And that seems to be their plan, is just to keep pumping that gas in there until they get this guy out. But he has been pretty resilient, and you know, with the amount of vaping that he's doing and the amount of smoking that he's got going on, maybe that gas or maybe that pepper and that powder is just not as effective because he's so inebriated. But you can see that right there, that deputy, that's the pepper ball gun. Folks at home can kind of see what it looks like. We'll keep an eye on him. We'll see if he uses that. But they're not going to shoot it at him. They're going to shoot it around him or try to get those pepper balls into the cab of that vehicle, not actually striking that suspect. And every time you see like a yellow or a green stock for the law enforcement, those are going to be less than lethal weapons. So you can see that they've got a lot of less than lethal out. I'm sure some of the other deputies have their sidearms available just in case that, like you said, we still don't really know. That suspect could reach under his seat and pull out a gun. Hopefully that's not what's going to happen. But right now, law enforcement, they're doing what they can to get this guy out of the car and into cuffs safely.
Stu, I'm glad you're explaining just the way this works with the pepper balls and just the tactics that they're using, because this one is a little rare in how we're watching it hopefully come to an end soon in as peaceful of a manner as possible. But it's interesting that you do say perhaps because he is inebriated, he is able to tolerate everything that they're throwing at him, because it does seem like someone who was just sitting there without the alcohol and whatever else is in his system would not be able to tolerate all that. It would be quite irritating.
That stuff is supposedly extremely irritable, and we've seen it in the past where they've launched a couple of those pepper balls into a car, and you see see that suspect jump out like they sent in a jar full of bees. But a lot of other and this is the thing too, every time they seem to approach, especially on the driver's side, he starts to roll up that window. I wonder if what their plan is to try to break that window, next time he rolls it up so that he won't be able to roll it back up again. You can see the deputies making their approach, trying to get the shot where you can see that suspect as well. But there he goes, he's rolling up that window. Yeah, that's old school. You see it right there?
Yeah.
That's not electric. He's got a crank. So, this is what they're worried about. This is it. This is what they've been so worried about. And his behavior right now is not what we want to see at all. This is, what are you doing, dude? What are you doing? Just got his foot on the gas there. We got that thing, and that tire will blow after a little bit. It's going to put out a lot of smoke, and then it's just gonna pop, and that could create some problems as well. If that rubber starts flying, a deputy might get injured. But it kind of shows you though how solid the cruisers are. But if this guy puts this thing in drive, this could end very, very poorly.
Yep, that's what it looks like. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to push his way back. Not much success at this point.
Nope. And look at the deputies are doubling it up. They got another cruiser. They got another cruiser. So they got two cars right behind that Ford pickup truck right there. So it's not going to go anywhere. Those tires are going to start getting hot. And like I said, that thing could pop. I know it. I've seen it in the past, but it does seem like he's kind of just he's realizing it's not going anywhere, just making a lot of noise, being just being a knucklehead. That's all he's doing right now. He's creating more problems when he could just easily just go into custody. I'm just worried that he might be so inebriated he just pops that thing into drive and launches himself into the wash. I just don't want to see that happen.
I mean, he could also. It looks like he could maybe go to the right. I don't know how far he would get. He would probably get stuck right there. Interesting, he hasn't attempted to come out of his car and just make a run for it at this point.
You know, running is it almost falls under exercise, and this gentleman right here doesn't seem like he gets much exercise, so I think that's off his list of things to do. He just was going to kind of hang out there again with some sort of vape. You can see him pointing to the officers, so we're just going to keep an eye on what's going on. And again, at least he stopped hitting the gas. That as long as we see those reverse lights on, you know that that vehicle's still in gear. And clearly he still has the keys. So all these things, these are definitely, there you go, he just put it back into park. These are things that the deputies are aware of, they have to deal with. These are parts of the fluid situation, as it would be, that where they're going to have to make these decisions on how they're going to handle this suspect and get him into custody without injury. And that was an unusual turn of events, but it kind of shows you how aggressive this guy is. Now tossing more stuff out. He seems to be running out of things to inhale inside that vehicle. So possibly, you know, maybe he'll make that decision here shortly, but that aggressive move is definitely going to change the plans that any of these deputies had to take that guy into custody.
Right, you do see that they have backed off. It seemed for a moment that they were maybe going to approach the vehicle and act upon something, some kind of plan they had, but it looks like because of his behavior now they're trying to figure out what to do next. You know, watching him, you're thinking the longer this takes, the more things you attempt to do, the worse it's going to be for you, because everything is adding up on that rap sheet.
You know, definitely, and we've heard other law enforcement say that, you know, they just go for the big ones. But a lot of times it is exactly what you say, Aroxia. There is somebody that literally is like, oh, and then he did this, and oh, and then he did that, and they write all this stuff down, and it does add up. And depending upon what this suspect has already against him, if he has anything against him already, you know, that's going to add to it when he has his moment in front of a judge in court. Right now, though, that's kind of, there's some more pepper balls, there are more of them coming, and he just keeps leaning out of the car. That seems to be a smart move. I wonder if the deputies could get there quick enough, and then maybe as he like leans out, help him out the window a little bit. But right now, it seems like they still just want to let him make that decision on his own. And you can see he's trying to get some fresh air right there. But you know, these deputies, yeah, if they bring the dog, that things might change pretty quick, I would guess.
Yeah, that's a good point. When do they make that call? Do we know?
They may have already made that call. You know, the canine units are not always right nearby. There might have to, that canine might have to make his way from a different division or a different area, as it would be for the deputies. So that might be part of it. But this is probably something that is on their list. And if this goes on much, much longer, they might get SEB in here, the Special Tactics units, you know, their version of SWAT. And they might come up with something very quickly and just get this guy into custody. But right now, you just got a stubborn guy, won't get out of the truck, and he's got no place to go. But the deputies want him to, they have a place for him to go, but we just have to get him there. That's the problem.
For those who are maybe just joining and wondering what is going on, the time is 1:33, and we did cut into regular scheduled programming to bring you this. This was a reckless DUI driver pursuit. We've been on this since, I would say, 12:55, but it began a little bit before that. So basically, this driver in Compton, it began in Compton and stayed in the Compton area, refused to stop. It was relatively a slow pursuit, but he was driving recklessly, at times obeying the signal lights, at times not. Several pit maneuvers were made. Two of them we witnessed on the air. One of them, Stu said, had happened prior to us bringing this coverage to you. So at least 3 pit maneuvers, which failed. And he did get away, but ended up coming into this neighborhood and getting stuck right there where he doesn't have much option unless he wants to get out of the vehicle and just end this. But this is where we are. They've shot several rounds of pepper balls into the vehicle. They have attempted to, I think, speak with him from afar, of course. He's refusing to come out. We did witness him inhaling what we're assuming may be nitrous from a balloon as he was behind that vehicle. And even when he came to a stop, he seems to be smoking some kind of a vaping device, perhaps. Just doing everything possible not to exit the vehicle, sticking his head out of that window. There you see him smoking right there, as I say. Sticking his head out that window for fresh air because that car is filling up with that gas. You see the deputies once again, it looks like, trying to approach him, and as they do that, he's once again trying to back up. Stu, this is the second time he's tried to do this, but those police cruisers are pretty steady. They're not moving.
Yeah, those police cruisers are not going to be going anywhere, and I think he's just kind of doing that to keep those deputies away from the vehicle. And they are doing the right thing when that starts happening. They just kind of back off. I'm just curious to see if he does lose a tire. What's gonna happen after that? You know, if he keeps hammering it like that, those tires are gonna get hot eventually, and he's tearing into that rubber. So, and not that we're concerned about his tire wear, we're concerned about that tire exploding under the pressure and the heat, which we have seen in the past. So right now, the deputies, they're gonna stay there. Every time they seem to approach, he puts that thing in reverse, and that kind of pushes them back, which is sad in itself. But you know, again, the law enforcement, they have to work within a certain parameter, and safety is the biggest one. And they have to keep their deputies safe, and they have to keep that suspect safe as well.
The waiting continues, Stu. The wait continues. What time did this pursuit begin? I know we came on the air about 12:55 or so, but it happened a little bit after 12:30. Is that right? Stu's probably getting some information right now. We'll let him get that information before he continues to fill us in on what's going on. But there you see all of the deputies, the number of police cruisers there behind this vehicle, trying to decide what to do next.
I got you guys. Yeah, they are definitely trying to figure out what they're going to do next down there, and they are making plans. These deputies aren't just biding their time down there, and we've actually seen them being very aggressive to try to get that suspect out of that vehicle in a safe way. They still have some pepper balls. They still have some CS gas. Now it is just the how are they going to get that deliver that into the cab of that truck in a safe manner. So you know, they can't just walk up to it, because it seems like every time they try to do that now, he puts it in reverse, starts revving that engine, and you know, again, safety. They have to be safe. So now they're kind of at an arm's length, as it would be. But at some point, this suspect is going to have